Please, don't go!
Let me go!
We need to talk.
No, it's over.
I divorced my Korean mafia boss husband the day I found birth control pills in his suit. I thought the lies were over. I was wrong. Because when power, obsession, and love collide, walking away is never that simple.
I can't stay away from you.
Please like and subscribe, it helps the channel. The pills rattled like accusations in my trembling palm. Small, circular betrayals wrapped in foil. I stood frozen in our penthouse bedroom. Daehoon's tailored suit jacket draped across my arm, the scent of his cologne still clinging to the fabric. I'd only been looking for his business card to confirm our dinner reservation. Instead, I'd found proof that my husband had been lying to me for months. Birth control pills, hidden in the inner pocket of his Brioni suit like contraband. My reflection stared back at me from the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. Liana Kim, formerly Liana Williams, a black woman who defied her family's warnings to marry into one of South Korea's most powerful crime families. 28 years old, with mahogany skin that stood out in every room I entered in this country, and eyes that had seen too much in the 3 years since I'd said, "I do," to a man whose business dealings happened in shadows. But nothing had prepared me for this particular darkness. "We're trying for a baby," I whispered to my reflection, my voice cracking. "We've been trying for 8 months. 8 months of negative pregnancy tests. 8 months of Daehoon holding me while I cried, whispering reassurances in that deep voice that had first seduced me in a New York gallery opening 4 years ago. 8 months of him scheduling my doctor's appointments, suggesting fertility specialists, playing the role of devoted husband desperate for a child, all while he'd been secretly ensuring it could never happen. The sound of the penthouse elevator arriving sent adrenaline flooding through my veins. I shoved the pills back into his jacket pocket, my hands moving on instinct. Years of being married to Daehoon had taught me that survival sometimes meant hiding what you knew. "Liana," his voice carried through the apartment, smooth as aged whiskey. "Where's my beautiful wife?" I emerged from the bedroom, jacket still in hand, my face a mask I'd perfected at countless family dinners with the Kim clan. Polite, pleasant, revealing nothing. Daehoon stood in the living room, 6 feet of lethal grace wrapped in a blood-splattered shirt he was already unbuttoning. This was my life now. A husband who came home with evidence of violence on his clothes and kissed me like I was something precious. "Rough night," kept my tone light, casual. His dark eyes found mine, and for a moment, I saw the flash of something. Concern? Guilt? Before his expression smoothed into that devastating smile. "Nothing I couldn't handle. You waited up for me. I was looking for your business card." I held up the jacket. "The restaurant needs to confirm our anniversary reservation." "Our anniversary." He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, cupping my face with hands that had probably pulled a trigger hours ago. 3 years with the woman who changed everything. "Come here." His kiss was demanding, possessive, tasting of whiskey and lies. I responded because my body had been trained to his touch, even as my mind screamed the truth. "He doesn't want your child. He's been preventing it. Every tender moment has been performance." When he released me, I forced myself to smile. "You should shower. You have blood on your collar. Always taking care of me," he murmured, brushing his lips against my forehead. "What would I do without you? You're about to find out." I waited until the shower started before I moved. 3 years of being Daehoon's wife had taught me efficiency. I pulled my pre-packed go-bag from the back of my closet, always ready. A survival instinct from my first month in Seoul, when I'd realized exactly what family I'd married into. Passport, cash in 3 currencies, burner phone, and the USB drive containing copies of Daehoon's financial records that could either save my life or end it. My wedding ring came off with a soft click. 3 carats of flawless diamond that had looked like a promise and turned out to be a prison. I placed it on the bedside table next to a single note written on hotel stationery. "I know about the pills. Don't follow me. We're done." The words felt inadequate for the death of a marriage, but I had no time for poetry. I had maybe 20 minutes before Daehoon finished his shower, and I needed to be a ghost by then. Seoul streets swallowed me whole at 2 a.m. I dressed in forgettable clothes, black jeans, dark jacket, hair covered, and flagged a taxi to Incheon Airport. The driver didn't ask questions, probably couldn't read the terror thrumming through my veins. My phone buzzed as we merged onto the highway. Daehoon. I powered it off without reading the message. At the airport, I bought a ticket to New York on the first available flight, using cash and a passport Daehoon didn't know I'd renewed. 6 hours until boarding. I found a corner in a 24-hour cafe, ordered coffee I wouldn't drink, and waited. That's when my burner phone rang. The number was unknown, but in my world, that meant everything. I answered without speaking. Liana. Not Daehoon's voice, but one I recognized. His younger brother, Miho. You need to come back. Now. I'm done being a Kim. He's tearing apart Seoul looking for you. 3 of his men are already at the airport. Whatever you think you know. I know enough. I cut him off. Tell your brother I want a divorce. Clean, quiet, and quick. Miho's laugh was bitter. You know it doesn't work that way. Nobody leaves this family, Liana. Nobody leaves him. Watch me. I hung up and smashed the phone under my heel. Around me, travelers hauled luggage and chased flights, oblivious to the war I just declared on one of Seoul's most dangerous crime families. My boarding pass crinkled in my grip. 5 hours and 43 minutes until freedom. I didn't know then that Daehoon was already on his way, that he'd figured out my destination before I'd even made it through security. I didn't know that the pills I'd found were only the first lie in a web of deception that stretched back to the day we'd met. All I knew was that the man I'd loved enough to cross an ocean for had betrayed me in the most fundamental way, and I was done being the naive American girl who'd fallen for a beautiful monster's smile. The first blow came at security. Airport officials pulled me aside with apologetic efficiency, and I knew that Daehoon's reach extended even here. But they were checking my bag for routine inspection, and I forced my racing heart to slow. Ma'am, you're all set, the officer said, returning my passport. I just cleared the checkpoint when I saw him. Daehoon stood at the far end of the terminal, still wearing the clean clothes he'd changed into after his shower, looking like sin and salvation wrapped in Armani. Our eyes met across 100 yards of polished floor, and the expression on his face made my blood run cold. Not anger, devastation. He started walking toward me, and I ran. The terminal blurred past me. Duty-free shops, confused travelers, security guards shouting in Korean. My lungs burned, but terror gave me speed I didn't know I possessed. Behind me, I heard Daehoon calling my name, his voice cracking on the second syllable. Liana, please, just let me explain. I burst through a service door, triggering an alarm that screamed like my fractured heart. The stairwell echoed with my footsteps and his, always closer than I wanted, never close enough for him to catch me. 3 flights down, I emerged into a restricted area. Luggage conveyors and airport staff who startled at my appearance. Sorry, wrong door. I gasped in English, then Korean, stumbling toward an exit sign. A hand caught my arm. Not Daehoon, one of his men, Jay, who'd driven us to family dinners and disposed of bodies with equal efficiency. Mrs. Kim, please don't make this difficult. I stomped on his instep with everything I had, yanked free, and dove through a door marked, authorized personnel only. More corridors, more confused workers, and then, blessed salvation, an exit to the tarmac. The night air hit my face like a slap. I stood among parked service vehicles, chest heaving, with absolutely no plan beyond a way. Liana. Daehoon's voice came from behind me, quiet now, defeated. I turned slowly. He stood in the doorway, hands raised in surrender, and God help me, he'd been crying. Kim Daehoon, the man I'd once watched break another man's arm without changing expression, had tear tracks on his perfect face. Don't come closer, I warned. I won't. He stayed where he was, and the distance between us felt like continents. Just listen. 5 minutes. Please. You've been drugging me with fake vitamins while hiding birth control pills in your suits. What could you possibly say? They weren't. He stopped, swallowed hard. They weren't for you. They were mine. The world tilted sideways. What? Male birth control. experimental from a pharmaceutical contact. I've been taking them because his voice broke. Because my father wants an heir. My uncles want an heir. The entire Kim family expects you to produce the next generation of our empire. And I can't. You're not making sense, I interrupted. But my anger was fracturing into confusion. I don't want to bring a child into this life. The words exploded from him, raw and desperate. Every day I watch my father destroy people. Every day I do things that would make you leave me if you knew the details. And every night I come home to you, to your goodness, your light. And I think about putting a child in this darkness, and I can't breathe. I'd imagined 100 explanations. Infidelity, secret families. Not this. So you lied to me for 8 months? Let me think something was wrong with me? I was trying to buy time, to figure out how to. He ran his hands through his hair, the carefully styled black strands falling across his forehead. My plan was to fake the fertility tests, convince everyone it was medical, give us years before. Before what? We stayed married and childless forever while your family pressured us. I laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Did you think I wouldn't want the truth? I thought the truth would make you leave. His shout echoed across the tarmac. I thought if you knew how broken this all was, how broken I am, you'd realize you made a mistake marrying me. So instead you made the choice for both of us. Yes. Simple. Honest. I'm sorry. Airport security was approaching. I could see them in my peripheral vision, walking with purpose. We had seconds before this became an international incident. I filed for divorce, I said quietly. 2 weeks ago, before I found the pills. The color drained from his face. What? I've been planning to leave for a month, Daehoon. The pills were just confirmation that I'd made the right choice. The words tasted like ashes. I can't live in your world anymore. The violence, the secrets, the way you compartmentalize murder and marriage like they're separate things. They are separate. You are separate. You're the only clean thing in my life. I don't want to be your redemption. The shout ripped from somewhere deep. I want to be your partner, your equal. Not some saint you worship while you sin in the shadows. Security was 10 yards away now, speaking rapidly into radios. Tell me how to fix this, Daehoon pleaded. Tell me what you need. I needed honesty. I needed a husband who trusted me with the truth, even when it was ugly. I backed toward the security guards. I needed the man who told me he loved me in that New York gallery to actually exist. But he doesn't, does he? He was always a story you told to seduce an American girl. That's not. Goodbye, Daehoon. The security guards reached me, speaking in concerned Korean, trying to sort out who I was and why I was on the tarmac. I let them guide me away, answering questions in halting Korean, watching Daehoon's figure grow smaller. He didn't try to follow. That was how I knew I'd finally broken through. Kim Daehoon, who'd fought for everything he'd ever wanted, was letting me go. The next 3 months were war. Daehoon's lawyers were surgical and merciless, dragging out proceedings, contesting every asset. My lawyer, a fierce woman named Grace Kim who specialized in high-profile divorces, warned me it would get ugly. He's stalling, she said during one of our strategy sessions in her Manhattan office. Every week he contests something new. The apartment, the car, your jewelry. None of it matters to him financially. Then why? Because every week you're still legally his wife is another week, he can try to change your mind. She was right. The flowers started arriving daily. Black dahlias, my favorite. Impossible to find in New York, but somehow appearing at my sister's apartment where I was staying. Notes came too, written in Daehoon's precise handwriting. I told my father about the pills. He disowned me. I've been seeing a therapist. Dr. Sarah Chen. She says I have patterns of control rooted in childhood trauma. She's probably right. I donated $10 million to the Children's Defense Fund in your name. I know it doesn't fix anything. I wanted to do something that mattered to you. I miss the way you hum while cooking. I miss your terrible Korean pronunciation. I miss everything. I didn't respond to any of them, but I didn't throw them away either. My sister Jasmine found me one night surrounded by his notes, crying into a glass of wine. You still love him, she said softly, sitting beside me. Love isn't enough. It was never enough. Maybe not. But you haven't signed the final papers yet either. The papers sat on my nightstand, reviewed and approved by Grace, waiting only for my signature. One name and this chapter of my life would close. I picked up my pen a dozen times. Never signed. Then came the news that changed everything. Daehoon had been shot. The call came at 3 a.m. from Miho, Daehoon's brother, his voice stripped of its usual calculated calm. He's in surgery. It's bad, Liana. You should, if you want to say goodbye, you should come. I was on a plane to Seoul 6 hours later. Divorce papers forgotten on my nightstand. The flight was 13 hours of purgatory. I learned what I could from news reports. An ambush outside a restaurant in Gangnam. For gunmen, 3 of Daehoon's bodyguards dead. The Kim family's enemies were claiming responsibility, but the details were murky. Everything in that world was always murky. I'd sworn I'd never return to Seoul. Never walk back into the gilded cage I'd fought so hard to escape. But the thought of Daehoon dying without me there, without him knowing I'd come, was unbearable. Miho met me at the airport, looking 10 years older than when I'd last seen him. His hug was desperate, grateful. He's stable. Out of surgery. The doctors say. His voice caught. They say it's hour by hour. Seoul National University Hospital's VIP ward was crawling with Kim family security. They parted for me like water. These men who'd once followed orders to keep me under surveillance. In the elevator, Miho briefed me with clinical precision. 3 bullets. 1 through the shoulder. 1 grazed his ribs. 1. He stopped. 1 what? Lodged near his spine. They removed it, but there could be permanent damage. They won't know until he wakes up. The hospital room was exactly what I expected. Private, filled with flowers from people offering condolences and power plays in equal measure. But nothing prepared me for the sight of Daehoon in that bed. He'd always been so alive. Dangerous and electric and impossible to ignore. Now he looked breakable, wrapped in bandages and connected to machines that beeped his existence in steady rhythms. I sank into the chair beside his bed, taking his hand carefully, mindful of the 4. You idiot, I whispered. You beautiful, stupid idiot. His hand was warm, alive. I clung to that. I stayed for 3 days, leaving only to shower in the penthouse apartment that still held my clothes in the closet, still smelled like the life I'd abandoned. The Kim family visited in shifts. His father, stone-faced and silent. His mother, who'd never approved of me but gripped my hand with surprising strength. Various uncles and cousins who eyed me with calculation, wondering if my return meant something politically. Only Miho seemed to understand that I was simply a woman sitting vigil for a man she'd never stopped loving, despite her best efforts. On the 4th day, Daehoon's eyes opened. He stared at the ceiling for a long moment, then turned his head slowly, every movement obviously painful. When he saw me, his expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and something that looked like grief. Liana. My name was barely a rasp. You came. I'm still listed as your emergency contact. The hospital called. A lie. Miho had called. But I needed the distance that dishonesty provided. You look. He stopped to cough, wincing. You look beautiful. I'd been sleeping in chairs for 4 days. My hair was a mess, and I probably smelled like hospital antiseptic. But his eyes held the same wonder they'd had when he first saw me in that New York gallery, studying a piece by a Harlem Renaissance artist, completely unaware that I was about to meet my destiny. Who shot you? I asked instead of accepting the compliment. Park faction. Revenge for. He closed his eyes. It doesn't matter. Old business. It matters if it killed you. But it didn't. I'm here. You're here. His hand tightened weakly on mine. Liana, the divorce papers are still unsigned. His eyes opened again, searching my face. Why? I don't know, I admitted. I should have signed them the day they arrived. I should be in New York, moving on with my life. Instead, I'm in Seoul, watching you almost die, and I realize, my voice broke. I realize I'm still angry at you, furious. But the thought of you not existing in the world somewhere feels impossible. I've been getting help, he said quietly. Real help. Therapy twice a week. I told my father I want out of the family business. He said I was weak, that you made me weak. What did you say? I said he was right, that you showed me there were other ways to live, even if I didn't know how to choose them. He paused, breathing carefully around what must have been considerable pain. I told him I'd rather be weak and worthy of you than strong in his world. He disowned you, officially, but Miho says it's mostly for show. Father can't fully cut me loose. Too many people are loyal to me, not him. So we're in a stalemate. I'm out of the business but still tangentially connected. A Kim in name only. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe that a man could change, that love could redeem, that the past 3 months of hell had led somewhere besides more heartbreak. The pills, I said. If you'd just told me the truth. I know. I've replayed that conversation 1,000 times in my head. The real one where I'm honest about my fears instead of trying to control everything. His thumb traced circles on my palm, a gesture so familiar it hurt. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. I'm learning to be a different person, and it's harder than any fight I've ever been in. But I can promise I'll never lie to you again. About anything. Ever. How can I trust that? You probably can't. Not yet. Trust is earned, and I destroyed what we had. He struggled to sit up, and I instinctively moved to help him, adjusting pillows with practiced care. But Liana, if you give me the chance, I will spend every day proving that I can be the man you needed me to be. Not perfect, not clean, but honest. Yours. My phone buzzed. A text from Grace, my lawyer. Final divorce hearing scheduled for next month. Need your signature by Friday to proceed. I had 4 days to decide the rest of my life. I need time, I told Daehoon. I need to see that this is real. That you're not just saying what I want to hear because you almost died and I'm conveniently here. Whatever you need. However long it takes. And I need you to understand that even if we try again, it won't be the same. I won't be the naive girl who believed in fairy tales. I'll question everything. Push back on everything. Be difficult and demanding and probably exhausting. For the first time since waking, he smiled. That devastating, dangerous smile that had ruined me 4 years ago. Liana, you've always been difficult and demanding. It's one of the things I love most about you. Despite everything, I laughed. I stayed in Seoul for 2 more weeks, watching Daehoon heal, meeting with his therapist Dr. Chun, who confirmed, with appropriate professional discretion, that he'd been doing the work, and slowly, carefully rebuilding something from the rubble of our marriage. We talked, for hours, about the things we'd always avoided. His childhood in a crime family, my fears of losing myself in his world, the future we both wanted but had been too afraid to voice. He told me about the nightmares he'd had since the shooting, about the way mortality had clarified what mattered. I told him about the loneliness of those 3 months in New York, about how much I'd missed him even while hating him. I want to try again, I said one evening as we sat in the penthouse, watching Seoul's lights twinkle like grounded stars. But not here. Not in this city. Not in this life. Where then? I don't know yet. Somewhere neither of us has history. Somewhere we can build something new. I turned to face him. Can you actually leave? Truly leave? I've already started the process. Miho is taking over my responsibilities. Father is furious but contained. It'll take time to fully extract myself. But he took my hand. Yes, for you, for us, I can leave. And children, the question hung between us, weighted with everything unsaid. I want them, he said carefully. With you, but only when we're both ready. Only when we've built a life stable enough to bring kids into without the darkness following us. And only if you still want them after everything I put you through. I do, I admitted. Someday. Not today, but someday. He kissed me then, careful of his healing injuries, and it felt like a promise. Like beginning again. I flew back to New York to settle my affairs, but not to sign the divorce papers. Instead, I had Grace draw up a new agreement. A postnuptial contract that clearly outlined our terms, our boundaries, our shared future. Daehoon signed without hesitation. 6 months later, we were living in Vancouver, Canada, far enough from Seoul to breathe, close enough to manage the remaining Kim family business remotely while Daehoon continued his extraction. I'd started teaching art history at a local college. He'd invested in legitimate businesses, technology startups, real estate. We were learning to be normal, or as normal as we could be, given where we'd come from. On our 4th anniversary, Daehoon gave me a gift, the USB drive I'd carried in my go bag, the one with all his financial records. You kept this. I turned it over in my hands. Insurance policy. I found it in your closet after you left. He smiled. I was impressed, actually. Very thorough. You could have destroyed my entire family with that information. I thought about it. I know. That's why I'm giving it back. No more insurance policies. No more exit strategies. We're all in or we're nothing. I threw the drive into our fireplace, watching it melt in the flames. All in, I agreed. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Daehoon's past would always cast shadows. Old enemies, old debts, old patterns of behavior that required constant vigilance. And I would always carry the scars of those 8 months of deception. The night I ran through Seoul's airport. The weeks I'd spent convinced that love was a trap I'd barely escaped. But we'd found something in the fire, an honesty that only came from almost losing everything. A commitment forged not in the romantic haze of a New York gallery opening, but in the harsh light of truth. And maybe that was its own kind of fairy tale. Not the story I'd imagined when I married a beautiful, dangerous man, but the story I needed where love was tested, shattered, and rebuilt into something stronger than before, where two broken people chose each other, again and again, despite everything, where redemption was possible if you were brave enough to fight for it. Together. Please like and subscribe and don't stop here. Check out our channel for more interesting stories.